Afternoon, it's the 2nd of February 2017. Today I want to cover Volume 6 of my Army career. We're going to cover from the time I left for Fort Lewis after leave from postal school to the very beginning of my deployment to Iraq. So whenever I was at postal school, I had the understanding that I was going to go to Fort Lewis, report the 10th of July 2007, and we were going to deploy. I had met my commander who I was going to have in Iraq and at Fort Lewis, which was Captain Logan. And so very comfortable with him after meeting with him. And he was there taking a postal leadership course, the Fox 4 course, and I was taking the Fox 5 course. And there was a few others that was with us that came from Fort Benning that was going to be on the deployment. So do a month's worth of leave, and then I get to go to Fort Lewis. Well, up until this point in my life, I had just turned 30 years of age. I had never flown before. So, go to the Atlanta airport, take my first flight. Wasn't nervous, wasn't apprehensive at all about a flight. Actually kind of enjoyed it. And got to Fort... I got to SeaTac, just south of Seattle, and then ended up getting a shuttle to Fort Lewis. In processed, they took us to the temporary receiving barracks, and just like any other post, it was you do your in processing, get your unit, and that was it. Well, the really good thing was the commander I was going to have, Captain Logan, he was also the commander of the reception battalion. And he was going to take over a brand new unit, the 22nd HRC. Now, the 22nd hadn't stood up yet. They had some temporary quarters. It was in the very beginning stages, but it hadn't officially stood up yet. So that was very, very convenient for us. And the company part of it, Captain Logan had already put in place, was in the same building there with the reception. So the barracks area for the reception. And so it was all in-house. Now, whenever we got done with reception, we were putting the barracks on North Fort, so we'd have to get the shuttle bus, and for some reason they put me in charge of driving the shuttle bus, and that was pretty interesting, to say the least. And but I would drive the shuttle bus once we got put in the unit back and forth to take the soldiers to PT, back so we could do personal hygiene, shower, all of those things. Get something to eat, and then we would do work calls. So I had to drive back, and then I would drive us all back after work call. So because we officially hadn't stood up as a unit, we had a lot of free time from the time we got there to the time we deployed. Now, at first we were going to deploy, I believe it was in August or early October. So it was, initially we was only going to be at Fort Lewis just for a few weeks, but ended up pushing the deployment back to where we're going to leave in late October, early November. So Captain Logan, I believe, and if he sees this video, he can definitely correct me, but I believe he ended up paying for a lot of the training that we had out of his own pocket. I believe he did. But if he didn't, nevertheless, our training was, I'm not going to say disorganized by any means, but it was kind of like a hodgepodge of training. So you would have, we had like some weapons call deal where we went into this simulated shooting range. We had training where we where they're like, work through urban warfare, kicking down doors, how to, set a perimeter inside and outside of a room, a fixed position. just all sorts of different things. Went through SRP a couple of times, get ready for deployment. Just a wide variety of different things. And other units that I'd been in and I'd see where they were getting ready to deploy, it was a little bit more organized, but they already had the everything from the company level down, set up for the soldiers. And again, the company hadn't stood up yet. So a lot of the funding wasn't there, and Captain Logan was making deals, because some of these places we'd go, we would do the training in the lunch hour of some of the people that were training us. Well, anyhow, like I said, we had a lot of free time. And they would tell us, out of sight, out of mind. So they might release us at 1300 after formation, and they would tell us, just go to your barracks, don't do anything, don't get in trouble. Well, privates being privates, you'd have the privates who would walk up, still in uniform, or maybe even in civilian clothes. They would walk up to, one of the battalions, or they might have a friend that was working there. And their company commanders, their first sergeants would be like, well, what are you doing? So it always get back to our chain of command. And so we would have to do some remedial things and so on and so forth. Well, one of the things that we did, not for remedial, but for the deployment, Captain Logan had set up a event, you can say, for those of us who were getting ready to deploy on his team. There was going to be 8 of us. And it was, there was other soldiers that was in there. There was probably about 50, 60 soldiers. And he put us in this training class, if you will, of basically, it was to help us prepare for whenever we came back from deployment. So we're listening to all of these different, soldiers, and some of them were officers, some of them were NCOs, some were lower enlisted, private specialists, so on and so forth. And they would talk about their experiences, not only downrange, but how they handled things when they came back. Me, being how I was at 30 years of age, I would listen to some of these guys talk about the struggling with it, and I scoffed at them. I mean, little did I know. I mean, I was being extremely dismissive. I was being extremely arrogant about these soldiers and what they had experienced and how he handled them. My mindset at the time wasn't so much of a, warmonger or anything of this nature, but I took the approach, basically, always be proud of what you do. Never regret nothing. Don't let, anything you've experienced to alter you and how you handle things and so on and so forth. And, but me being ignorant like I was, I'd never been deployed. So I didn't appreciate what these guys were talking about. Well, so that was part of the pre-up. And I'm sure I'm forgetting a lot of different little nuances to things. It's been almost 10 years now. But anyhow, so we keep preparing, and then it comes officially, we're going to have our deployment pushed back to late October. Now, Captain Logan's wife, she was also a captain, and she was a company commander of the 9th Finance Company there at Fort Lewis. They left. They were going to Kuwait, and they were going to have a detachment in Iraq. So they left a little bit before we did, and because ours had already got pushed back. And I'm not 100% sure exactly why. Captain Logan never told me, but he didn't have to. But anyway, so his wife's company, they go, and then shortly after that, our NCOIC was going to be on the deployment with us, Sergeant Todd. He was E6 at the time. He got his E7 downrange. Sergeant Todd, we had this briefing we were getting ready to go into. And first thing in the morning, and Sergeant Todd, he shows up for work call, and he had received word that there was a soldier, Staff Sergeant Clements, I believe was her name, and she had been one of his soldiers when she was a specialist in Germany several years before. And she was assigned to the same parent company, the 15th PSB, that we were going to be assigned to in Iraq at Camp Liberty. Well, Sergeant Clements was literally within like 12 hours of catching her flight to come home. And she was hit, basically a direct hit with a rocket or a mortar, as she was getting ready to go into the DFAC there at Camp Liberty. And needless to say, she didn't make it. So Sergeant Todd receives this word, and he lets us know about this situation. Well, it would put us on alert, if you will, on notice that we're going to be in the crosshairs of, regardless if it was Al-Qaeda, Taliban, whomever, Joe Blow down the street with the RPG. It didn't matter. We were going to be in the crosshairs. So that was, and it's not that we were ignorant by no means. Several of that was going to be on the deployment. There was Gordon. Gordon had deployed before. Shafto had deployed before. I believe Sergeant Todd had a deployment. I think Chief Trinidad had a deployment. I don't know if Captain Logan had a deployment or not, but I definitely had not. And Sergeant Simmons, he wasn't a sergeant yet, but he hadn't deployed yet. So we knew, it's Iraq. You're going to be in a dangerous situation. And but it kind of put us on notice. So the days progress. So the morning that we leave, that was the October 28th, 2007. We meet up, and there was actually kind of a debate, a pretty good debate about where we're going to meet. Was it going to be like Denny's or Waffle House, Shoney's? So I think Shoney's actually opened up a little bit later, but like Denny's or Waffle House or IHOP, something, where we're going to meet. And I think it ended up being a Denny's. I think it was. And it was cold, very, very cold. And so we go, we eat breakfast. We have just, we're already, it's like 4 o'clock in the morning. And Shafto came to pick me up. And so we go eat breakfast. And I have a really good time. No one's showing any signs of anxiety or anything of this nature. And so we go back to the base, go to the weapons room, draw weapons. And then we had all of our bags. So we load up our bags, we get on this little shuttle bus, and it takes us to McChord Air Force Base. And McChord Air Force Base was literally just right up the interstate from Fort Lewis. Now it's Joint Base Lewis McChord. And, but anyway, so they take us to the hangar, and they're at the flight line. We stayed, there was probably a couple of hundred total soldiers that was deploying from Fort Lewis that day. We probably stay in the hangar for, I don't know, probably a good 4 hours maybe, and 4.5 hours. And we take a picture, and we all have a copy of it. And, but anyway, kind of our little Band of Brothers picture, if you will. And then, of course, time progresses, and our plane comes in. I think it was like a Miami Air, I think it was, if I remember right. Civilian aircraft. And for whatever reason, I kept thinking we were going to fly all the way over there like on a C-130 or C-17 or something and just be miserable. But it was a pretty good size airplane. And so we board the plane and fly over, and then of course we get into Kuwait, And we started off in a couple of different countries, like Romania was one of them, Iceland. The first place we stopped was Peace Air Force Base, I think it was, in like New Hampshire. Flew right over the NASCAR track, New Hampshire International Speedway. And, but anyway, so we had like 4 or 5 stops before we got to Kuwait. And so we get to Kuwait, and of course, I mean, the worst part of that was unloading the plane. Everything got thrown in the big trucks, and once we got to, I think it was like Arif John, might have been Ali Asalim, but anyway, so we get into the Kuwait, get to the where we're at to do in processing in the country, and so we do all that kind of unload the bags and all, and that really sucked because you had probably about 400 bags, 500 bags, and I was on bag detail for that. And then we go inside and we start doing all the in processing. And this was about the 29th of October, early morning, 29th, maybe. So, so we're there. We do all the in process, and we do a what they call heat training. And heat training is like rollover. Humvee rollover training and so on and so forth. And I remember the funniest part about that is they taught us to, you had the gunner, and the gunner, if you to do a rollover, you drop down, and the people in the back seats will, hold on to a leg and a torso and so on and so forth, because he's not strapped in. Now, the rest of us are all strapped into our seatbelts. Shafto is not a ballerina dancer, okay? He's more of a Green Bay Packer offensive lineman. So, Shafto is the gunner, and so whenever we start the drill, and it's all controlled, it's not, just a flipping over end over end. Yeah, it's hydraulics and everything. So when we start the rollover, Shafto drops, and I think I was the only one in the back seat who actually took one of his legs. And I'm trying to hold him the best I can. He's just flopping around and everything. And it's wondered, none of us got a concussion. And I'm surprised that my, shoulder joints didn't come out of joint, trying to hold on to him, or I didn't pull his leg out of joint. But anyway, long story short, so we go roughly about a week, maybe not even a full week, of all of the in processing and stuff, and get ready to go. So the time comes, it was the 4th of November, 2007. And we get ready. I mean, and again, you have always like a little nervous excitement, anxiety issues, but nothing that's really, really bad. Okay. It's just kind of that nervous excitement, butterflies. You get right. If you've played football or baseball or any sport in high school, you kind of know what that feeling is before a game. And, but it is literally, it's go time. And again, there's several different things that I'm leaving out about Kuwait. We had a little, I will tell you this, it was kind of funny. We went to the field exercise, if you will, with a unit from the 101st Airborne out of Fort Campbell. And, we ended up sleeping outside on the desert floor. And there was like this, wild dog. I don't remember if it was like a greyhound type dog or something, but anyway, it came over this berm, and let's just say it violated one of the guys that was with us. Might have been Sergeant Atkinson, I think, and that was something. And it might have been him. Might have been somebody else. I think it was Sergeant Atkinson. Anyway, so 4th of November. We load the plane, and this was, I think, like a C-17, I think it was. And we fly into Iraq, and none of us knows exactly what to expect, except for those who've been deployed. And but for me, I definitely did not. Now it was put up or shut up. And I've often said that the greatest turning point in my life was the deployment. The next video will be exclusively deployment. And I won't go into every detail, but I changed dramatically from the deployment. So anyway, until then, this is Caleb signing off the net.